So you're interested in trying out night photography, but you think back to in the past when you've tried to take a picture outside at night and then you look at the back of your camera at your LCD display and the photo looks blurry, and then you just think, night photography is kind of hard. In reality, night photography is really simple if you know a little bit about what you're doing. I want to show you in less than 5 minutes how you can take some amazing night photos just by knowing a few basic things. I'm also going to show you some photos that I've taken and give you my aperture and shutter speed, so when you go out the first time you have an idea of maybe how many seconds you need to set your camera for so you can take some great photos.
You will need a tripod so your camera stays rock steady.
This is a remote release, and what it does is it trips your shutter button so you don't have to touch your camera when you take a picture. In night photography, you don't want any camera shake because you don't want any blur in your image. I suggest you don't even use this. I have one of these, and I don't like the fact that sometimes I misplace it or I have to go buy a new battery for it. Just go ahead and use the self-timer on your camera. If you have a newer Canon camera, they have self-timer that is only 2 seconds, so it's super easy. You don't have to keep track of equipment, you don't have to buy batteries, and you're just ready to go really quickly. So how to set your camera? What do I set my ISO to? ISO, if you remember back in the days of film, if you would go to Walmart, you could buy ISO 100, and they recommend that for shooting outside when it's bright. If you're shooting indoors, you would maybe buy ISO 400. So now that we're shooting digital, it's still the same type of thing. It's how much light is hitting your sensor. When we do night photos, we don't want a bunch of grain in the image. So I would just set your ISO setting to 100.
You can change your ISO setting to 800, but just notice that there will be more grain, digital grain in your image. This particular photo is going to be on a book cover, so even though I shot it at ISO 800, it didn't matter because I made the image look more like an illustration.
So how do I set my aperture? On your camera, you'll see an AV value. That stands for your aperture value. Aperture means opening. So if you are shooting a flower, usually you would want a big wide open aperture, of like 2.8. If you're shooting a landscape photo and you want a lot of detail far away, you can stop down your aperture. It makes the hole smaller to f16. So if we're going to go out and shoot night photos and shoot maybe a big long street, I would shoot at f16 or a number higher than that, like f22. What I suggest you do is shoot during the blue hour. The blue hour is the time right before the sun comes up and the sky turns a pretty shade of blue, or right after the sun goes down and then the sky looks a pretty shade of blue. That looks the best. If you wait longer than that and you go maybe just in the middle of the night, the sky's going to be really black and your photos aren't going to be as nice. Another tip, I like to shoot on a Sunday morning. I like to shoot in the mornings because the lights are already on right when I drive into the town. And I hate really actually at night trying to shoot because the sky is turning a pretty shade of blue and then my lights haven't kicked on yet. Or they start to kick on and then the lights over here haven't kicked on yet. So I just don't like the waiting around process. I like to shoot in the morning, go in and get it done.